Jesus, I surrender all to Him. I freely give. I will ever love and trust Him, in His presence daily live.
The 29th of November, 1904, Volume 6. The divinity of Jesus, in his humanity, descended into the deepest abyss of all human humiliations and divinized and sanctified all human acts. This morning, I was offering all the actions of the humanity of our Lord to repair for so many of our human actions, either carelessly done, without a supernatural purpose, or sinful, in order to impetrate that all creatures might do their actions with the intentions of the actions of blessed Jesus and in union with them, and to fill the void of glory that the creature would give God if she did so. While I was doing this, my adorable Jesus told me, "My daughter, my divinity in my humanity descended into the deepest abyss of all human humiliations, so much so that there was no human act, as lowly and little as it might be, which I did not divinize and sanctify. And this in order to give back to man doubled sovereignty, the one he lost in creation and the one I acquired for him in redemption. But man, always ungrateful and the enemy of himself, loves to be a slave rather than a sovereign, with a means so easy, that is, with the intentions of his actions united to mine, he could render his actions deserving of divine merit, but he wastes them and loses the device of king and the sovereignty over himself." Having said this, he disappeared, and I found myself inside myself. End of the reading. The 29th of November, 1910, Volume 10. Jesus is jealous that someone else may comfort the soul. Since a good and holy priest was coming, I was a little bit anxious to speak with him, especially about my current state, in order to know the divine will. Now, after he came, the first and the second time, I saw that nothing would be done of what I wanted. So, having received Holy Communion all afflicted, I was repeating my great affliction to my affectionate Jesus, saying to him, "My life, my good and my all, it shows that you alone are everything for me. I have never found in any creature, as good and holy as he might be, a word, a comfort, a solution for the slightest doubt of mine. It shows how there is to be no one for me but you alone, the all for me, and I alone, always alone for you. And so I abandon myself in you completely and always. As bad as I am, have the goodness of holding me in your arms without leaving me for one single instant." While I was saying this, my blessed Jesus made himself seen, looking in my interior, turning everything upside down to see if there was something which he did not like. And while turning and turning, he took something like a grain of white sand in his hands, and he threw it to the ground. Then he said to me, "Dearest daughter of mine, it is absolutely right that for one who is all for me, I be all for her. I am too jealous that someone else might give her the slightest comfort. I alone, I myself alone, want to make up for all and in everything. What is it that afflicts you? What do you want? I do everything to make you content. Do you see that white grain that I removed from you? It was nothing but a little bit of anxiety, for you wanted to know my will from others. I removed it from you and I threw it on the ground, so as to leave you in holy indifference, the way I want you. And now I will tell you what my will is. I want Mass and also communion. As for whether or not you must wait for the priest to come round, you will be indifferent to this. If you feel dozy, you will not try to come round, and if you feel awake, you will not try to doze off. However, know that I want you always ready and always at your post of victim, even if you should not always suffer. I want you like the soldiers in the battlefield. Even if the act of fighting is not continuous, they remain with their weapons ready, and if necessary seated in the quarters, so that every time the enemy tries to start the fight, they may always be ready to defeat him. The same for you, my daughter. You will remain always ready, always at your post, so that every time I should want to make you suffer, either for my relief or to hold back chastisements or for anything else, I may find you always ready. I do not have to always call you or dispose you to the sacrifice each time, but rather you will consider yourself as being always called, even if I should not always keep you in the act of suffering. So we have understood each other, haven't we? Be tranquil and fear nothing. End of the reading. The 29th of November 1918, Volume 12. One who goes out of the divine will goes out of the light. Finding myself in my usual state, I was praying my always lovable Jesus, according to what he had promised me another time, that when the soul always does his will, sometimes he consents to do the will of the soul. Therefore I said to him, "Today you really have to do my will." Jesus in coming told me, "My daughter, don't you know that as the soul goes out of my will, it is like a day without sun for her, without heat, without the life of the divine attitude within her?" And I, "My love, may heaven keep me from doing this. I would rather die than go out of your will. Therefore place your will in me, and then say to me, 'It is my will that today I do your will.'" And Jesus, "Ah, bad little one, all right, I will make you content. I will keep you with me as long as I want, and then I myself will leave you free." Oh, how happy I was that without doing my will, Jesus, identifying his will with mine, would do my will while doing his will. Afterwards, my lovable Jesus spent some time with me. It seemed that he was dipping the point of his finger in his most precious blood, and then traced it over my forehead, my eyes, my mouth, my heart. Then he kissed me. In seeing him so affectionate and sweet, I tried to suckle from his mouth the bitternesses which his heart contained, as I used to do before, but Jesus immediately withdrew a little, and showed me a bundle which he had in his hand, full of other chastisements. And he told me, "Look at how many other chastisements must be poured upon the earth. This is why I do not pour into you. The enemies have prepared all their internal plans to make revolutions. Now there is nothing left but to prepare their external plans. Ah, my daughter, how my heart grieves. I have no one with whom to pour out my sorrow. I want to pour it out with you. You will have to be patient in hearing me speak very often about sad things. I know that you suffer, but it is love that pushes me to do this. Love wants to make its pains known to its beloved. I almost could not do without coming to pour myself out with you." I felt bad in seeing Jesus so embittered. I could feel his pains in my heart, and Jesus, to cheer me, gave me a few sips of the sweetest milk to drink. Then he added, "Now I withdraw and I leave you free." End of the reading. The 29th of November 1926, Volume 20. How the Supreme Will from Queen acts as servant of the human will because they do not let it reign. As my usual abandonment in the adorable will continued, all creation made itself present, in which the Supreme Will flowed, dominating and triumphant, as light and as primary life in the great things, just as in the smallest ones. What enchantment, what order, what rare beauty, what harmony among them, because one is the will that dominates them and, flowing in them, binds them in such a way that one cannot be without the other. And my sweet Jesus, interrupting my amazement, told me, "My daughter, my will remained as operating life in each created thing, that it might dominate freely with its full triumph. So it has the operating life of the light and heat of the sun, the operating life of its immensity and of the multiplicity of its works in the heavens, the operating life of its power and of its justice in the sea. In fact, my will is not like the will of the creatures who, even if they want, if they do not have hands, they cannot work. If they do not have feet, they cannot walk. If they are blind and mute, they can neither speak nor see. My will instead does all the acts in one single act. While it operates, it walks. While it is all eyes to look, at the same time it is all voice to speak, and with such eloquence that no one can equal it. It speaks in the roaring of the thunder, in the bolt of the lightning, in the whistling of the wind, in the tumultuous waves of the sea, in the little bird that sings. It speaks everywhere, so that every one may hear its voice, now strong, now sweet, now thundering. Will of mine, how admirable you are! Who can say he has loved the creatures as you have? My very humanity, oh, how it remains behind you. I remain eclipsed in you, and you remain in your operating that has no beginning, nor does it ever end. You are always at your place, giving life to all created things, in order to bring your life to the creatures. Oh, if all knew what it does for them, how much it loves all, how its vital breath gives life to all, oh, how they would love it, and would all remain there, pressed around my eternal fiat, to receive the life it wants to give them. But do you know, my daughter, why my supreme volition left itself in all created things, dominating and as life, and doing its distinct office in each thing? Because it was to serve itself, its own will. It was to have life and dominion in the creature for whom it had created all things. It acted like a king who, wanting to form a residence for himself in which to reign and have his dwelling, forms in it many rooms. He puts many lights, so that darkness may not reign in it. He puts little fountains of most fresh waters. For his amusement he puts music. He has his residence surrounded by delightful gardens. In some he puts everything that can render him happy and that is worthy of his royalty. Now, as king, he must have his servants, his ministers, his soldiers. And what happens? These deny the king. And so instead of the king being the one who dominates, the servants, the ministers, the soldiers dominate. What would not be the sorrow of this king in seeing that his works do not serve him, but with injustice they serve his servants, and he himself is forced to act as the servant of his servants, because when a service, a work, serves oneself, one cannot be called servant. Now my will was to serve itself in the creatures, and therefore it left itself as more than noble queen in all created things, so that nothing might be lacking to its royalty of queen in the creature. There could be no one else who would be able to serve my will worthily, other than my will itself, nor would it have adapted itself to being served by servants, because no one would have had its noble and divine manners in order to serve it. Now listen to the great sorrow of my supreme will. It is right that you, who are its daughter, know the sorrows of your mother, of your queen, and of she who is your life. In the creation, it acts as the servant of servants. It serves the human will, because mine does not reign in the creatures. How hard it is to serve servants, and for many centuries. As a soul withdraws from my will to do her own, she puts my will in servitude in the creation. Therefore its sorrow is great. From queen, acting as servant, nor is there anyone who can soothe a sorrow so bitter. And if it continues to remain in the creation, serving the servants, it is because it is waiting for its children. It is waiting for the time when its works will serve the children of its eternal fiat, who, letting it reign and dominate within their souls, will let it serve its own nobility. Oh, only these children will soothe the sorrow so long and bitter. They will dry its tears of so many centuries of servitude. They will return to it the rights of its royalty. This is why it is so necessary to make my will known, what it does, what it wants, how it is everything and contains all goods, and its continuous sorrow, because they do not let it reign. After this, my mind remained so compenetrated by the sorrow of the Supreme Will that as the whole creation kept standing before my mind, to my highest sorrow, I could see this noble queen, veiled in each created thing, serving all creatures. It acted as servant in the sun, serving them by giving them light and heat. It acted as servant in the water, by offering it to their lips to quench their thirst. It acted as servant in the sea, to offer them the fish. It acted as servant in the earth, by giving them fruits, food of every kind, flowers, and many other things. In some I could see it in all things veiled with sadness, because it was not decorous for it to serve the creatures. On the contrary, it was unbefitting for its nobility of queen to act as servant of ungrateful and perverted creatures who were using its servitude without even looking at it, without saying a thank you or remunerating it with any retribution, as is normally done with servants. Who can say what I comprehended about this sorrow of the eternal fiat, so long and intense? But while I was swimming in this sorrow, my adored Jesus came out from within my interior, and pressing me to himself, all tenderness told me, "My daughter, it is very sorrowful and humiliating for my supreme volition to act as servant of creatures who do not let it reign within them. But it will feel much more glorified and happy in those who will let it reign. Look at it within yourself, how happy it is to serve you. It reigns in you while you write, and it feels honoured and happy to serve you by guiding your hand as you write, that you may write on paper the words for it to make itself known. It places its sanctity at your service within your mind in order to administer to you the ideas, the terms, the most tender examples that regard my supreme will, in order to make its way into the midst of creatures, so as to form its kingdom. It serves your sight in order to let you look at what you write, your mouth to feed you the words, your heart to let it palpitate with its own volition. What difference? It is happy to serve you because it serves itself. It serves to form its life. It serves the knowledge of itself, its own sanctity. It serves to form its kingdom. My will reigns in you while you pray, and it serves you by making you fly within itself, to let you do its acts, and to let you take possession of its goods. This way of serving of my will is glorious, is triumphant, is dominant, and it would suffer only if the soul did not let herself be served by it completely and in everything. End of the reading.
All to Jesus I surrender, all to him I freely give. I will ever love and trust him in his presence.
The 29th of November 1931, Volume 30. Surge and Empire of the Acts Done in the Divine Will. Exchange of life between Creator and creature. Sweet murmuring in the Divine Being. I feel the holy duty, the irresistible force, the extreme necessity to live in my dwelling, given to me by my celestial Jesus, that is, by his adorable will. And if sometimes I make some little exits, oh, how much they cost me. I feel that all evils swoop down on me, and feeling the great contrast that exists between living in my dear dwelling, in which beloved Jesus has given me my place, and outside of it, I dash to take my place, assigned to me by him, and I bless he who gave me a dwelling so happy, and gave me the great good of making me know his most holy will. But while my little intelligence was crossing the great sea of the supreme fiat, my beloved God, Jesus, made himself felt in my poor soul and told me, "My daughter, to be in the dwelling of my divine will is to be at one's place of honour given to her by God when the creature was issued to daylight. And for one who is at her place, God allows nothing to be lacking to her, neither sanctity, nor light, nor strength, nor love. Even more, he places at the creature's disposal whatever she wants to take from within the divine source. So she lives in the abundance of all goods." All the acts done in the divine will have the operative virtue of God, who feels drawn by his own power to operate in the act of the creature, and therefore these acts have the virtue of flinging themselves with such might and empire into the same sea of the divine will, to move it and place it in attitude of redoubling its glory, and to let it operate new goodness, new mercy, new love and light toward all creatures. So with her acts she does nothing other than spin the divine engine to let it operate. It is true that of our own we are in continuous motion that produces incessant works, but it is also true that by doing herself her acts in our will, she enters into this motion. She places something of her own, and our motion feels itself being spun and moved by the creature to produce our works. We feel her immediate act with all our works. So to feel her together with us, with our acts, is the greatest glory and happiness that we can receive. Do you think it is trivial that we give her virtue of moving the whole of our divine being? And since we enjoy as long as she remains at her place, we let her do what she wants, because we know with certainty that she will do nothing but what we ourselves want. All the opposite for one who lives of human will. Her acts do not have divine power. They are without surge. They remain down below, and many times they embitter their Creator. After this, I was saying to myself, oh, how I would want to give to my Jesus, to attest my love to him, as many lives for as many acts as I do. And my Jesus added, "My daughter, you must know that in each thing that the creature does, we give the act of life that comes out of us. If she thinks, we give her the life of the thought of our intelligence. If she speaks, we give her in her voice the life of our word. If she operates, the life of our works runs within hers. If she walks, we give the life of our steps in hers. See, it is two acts of life that must run in each act of the creature. First the act of divine life, and immediately her act. Now, if in all the things that she does them out of love for the one who gives her life, an exchange of life is formed. Life we give and life we receive. And although there is great difference between the acts of our life and those of the creature, yet we remain glorified and satisfied, because that is what she can give us, and that is what she does give us. More so, since all the acts done by her to give us the exchange of life remain not outside of us, but inside of us, as attestations of perennial life of the creature. We feel the exchange of her life within the life that we have given to her in our divine being. Our will and our love bring us the sweet murmuring of the life of her thoughts in our intelligence, the gentle murmuring of her word in our voice. Her works murmur sweetly in our works, and the treading of her steps as they walk murmur love and attestations of life to my Creator. And we, in our emphasis of love, say, who is it that murmurs in our divine being with the life of her acts? One who is in our will and operates out of pure love for us. But what is not our sorrow when we give life to the acts of the creature and we receive nothing? These acts of hers remain outside of us and as though dispersed, because the current of our will and of our love that would bring them to us is missing. And these acts, the majority of them, carry the seal of the offence to the one who gave them life. Oh, if creatures comprehended with clarity what it means to do their will, they would die of pain in comprehending the great evil into which they hurl themselves and the great good that they lose by not doing our divine will. Be attentive, my daughter, if you do not want to lose the eyes of the soul that are my will. Once these are lost, you yourself will not comprehend your highest misfortune, just as many other creatures do not comprehend it, who gamble away the divine will to do their own, but to do what? To render themselves unhappy. End of the reading. The 29th of November, 1937, Volume 35. Our pains, united with the pains of Jesus, form his life within us. There is no good that doesn't come from them. How lack of love martyrs the divine love. My poor mind swims in the sea of the divine volition. I feel that it breathes, palpitates and circulates more than blood inside the veins of my soul, saying, I am here, inside and outside of you, more than your own life. I run within each one of your acts. With my love I make everything easy for you, and I make you happy. In the meantime, he was showing me all the pains that I suffered, invested by light, holding them tightly close to his heart, as many conquests of his will. I remained preoccupied, and my always adorable Jesus, visiting me, said, My little daughter of my divine will, know that all the pains that my most holy humanity suffered on earth, every tear I shed, every drop of my blood, every step and motion, and even my breath, were and still are invested by one single voice with which they speak and shout continuously. We want the kingdom of the divine will to reign and dominate in the midst of the creatures. We want our divine rights to be placed in force, and they pray, speak and moan around our supreme throne without ever ceasing, that the will of heaven and of earth may be one. Now whoever unites with my sufferings, with my heartbeats, breaths, steps and works, prays, speaks and moans together with all I did and suffered on earth. There is no good that does not arise from my sufferings. United with those of the creature, my sufferings form the depository, the hosts that receive her pains, forming one single prayer together, one single voice, one single will. Even more, my pains carry the pains of the creature and everything she does before our Majesty, in order to make her want and do what I did. The pains of the creature kidnap my pains on earth in order to involve all the creatures in both my pains and her own, to dispose all the creatures to receive the life of my divine will. The union with me of her pains with my pains produces the great prodigy of my life in the creature, a life that operates, speaks and suffers as if I were on earth again. So I animate the whole being of the creature with the power of my acts. My life flows even in the most tiny trifles, so that all may be mine, animated by my creative power, and she may give me the love and the glory of my own life. Do you think that my will did not take into account all that you've suffered? Not at all. My will preserves within its womb of light all your sufferings, big and small, your distressed and sorrowful sighs, your privations. It even used them as material to be able to conceive, deliver, and grow its life. It could grow through each one of your pains that were being fed by its sanctity, filled with the ardour of its love, and embellished with its unreachable beauty. My daughter, how much you must thank me for all that I have disposed for you, and for all that I made you suffer. Everything served to form my life in you, as well as the triumph of my will. What a fortune for the creature, seeing that her pains served my life so wholly, which will have as fulfillment my divine will palpitating within her. Do you think it's trivial that the Creator shows his need for the creature, he who is omnipotent and gives life to all? Isn't this the greatest excess of our love? Jesus remained silent. I remained thinking about what he had just told me, and I saw all my pains lined up within me, spreading rays of light, being transformed into the pains of Jesus, forming the divine support and the defence for the creature, asking with continuous voices and moans that the divine will may come to reign. Then Jesus continued, My good daughter, our love is such that everywhere and in every place, even in the most tiny blade of grass, in the air that the creature breathes, in the water she drinks, even underneath her steps as she treads on the ground, we send our voices, our spasming cries of love. I love you, I love you, I love you. But our love can't find peace, feeling that it's not listened to by the creature, and not hearing her repeating, I love you, I love you. And in our delirium of love we say, oh, is anybody listening to us? Oh, nobody is saying to us, I love you, I love you. Why then say, I love you, if nobody returns it to us? To whom do we say, I love you? To the air, to the wind, to the empty space? Our I love you doesn't know where to go, where to lean, if it doesn't find the I love you of the creature to receive it and return it with her own, so that her love may find refuge inside our immense love, leaning on it and growing more and more. When the creature listens to our I love you and returns it, in our emphasis of love, as if reconciled by her love, we say, finally, we've been heard, our love found one to go to, a place for refuge. We have been recognized. We found one who says, I love you. Then our love makes a feast. But when we cannot find one who says, I love you, we don't find one who recognizes us, who listens to us, one who loves us. How hard it is to love, not being loved. How I wish that everybody knew that with my love I sustain them, I hug them, I love them and I make them breathe. I love them and I give them a heartbeat. I love them and I give them speech. I love them and I give them the step. I love them and I give them motion, thinking, food, water. All that they are and receive is the effect of my flowing love. So isn't not loving me a horrible ingratitude? It is making our love a martyr, because we loved and we are not loved. After this I was thinking to myself, but how can the creature know when our Lord tells her his repeated and continuous I love you, so that she may return them with her own? And my sweet Jesus added, it is indeed very easy to know it if the creature possesses the divine will as her own life. The divine will gives her its divine hearing that makes her listen when her Creator tells her, I love you. And it gives not only the divine sense of hearing, but also its divine word, so that as the hearing listens, the word says, I love you. Or better still, even before it says to her, I love you, she already feels she's about to receive the I love you of her God. So she makes her I love you meet the divine I love you, almost so as to engage in a contest with her Creator. My will wants to give everything to the Creator who lives in it. It gives her its arms to hug her, its steps to run after her. As we feel our divine nature, which is all love, and our need to love, to the extent that, if it were possible to prevent us from loving, we would suffocate, losing the breath of our divine life. Since our breathing, motion, and our very will are love for us, and it is impossible for us not to love, in the same way, one who possesses our will feels the need to love us, to always love us. Therefore, only my will can put order between the Creator and the creature, keeping her constantly aware of our love and sanctity, putting her in communication with our Supreme Being. End of the reading. There are no more readings today. Have a blessed day.